Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast, aka The Guilty Environmentalist. It's like The Guilty Feminist, but with environmental stuff. Case in point, this morning, as a celebration, I treated myself to a Millionaire's shortbread cheesecake with a plastic spoon, single use. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
I'm an environmentalist, but...
I think saying that we're like the guilty feminist except environmentalist is
what are you
bigging ourselves up quite a lot.
I need an I'm an environmentalist, but before we can proceed.
Okay, sorry. I'm an environmentalist, but we're going to children's birthday party tomorrow, and I fully intend to buy some plastic throwaway crap to wrap up and give the child.
Well, there we go. Judgment engaged. What are we talking about this week?
This week we're talking about the Overton Window.
The Overton Window, you say? What flipping hell is that?
I don't know. People keep going on about it in the news, so I thought we should talk and find out what it is.
Apparently it's that thing where by adding more extreme right-wing people that now, not previously right-wing people, look like they're in the centre. Notice I'm not saying right or left, because I think that's a miss something or other. But we can get into that in the episode. Yeah. I don't think they're symmetrical.
I think it applies to either swing.
Technically it applies to anything, but I think the idea that there is correspondence between extreme left-wingness and extreme rightness is a right-wing myth.
Oh.
I think that calling tolerance and equality and inclusion the equivalent to wanting to round up people of a certain race and murder them, I don't think they sit on the same spectrum. I think it's being a good person or being a bad person.
I really like that you've expressed it that way. I had never thought about it that way, but yes, it is not. They are not opposite ends of a spectrum. I agree.
Well, let's agree. The I agree podcast. Well, I'm going to say something that you disagree with to create conflict and excitement in the podcast.
Yeah.
That's the. So yeah, it's people going more extreme so they can get away with stuff that previously would have been shocking. So we're going to talk about that. Basically, normalisation of absolute nonsense that we're all just jaded by now, and I think that all plays in as well. So let's do it. Hello, Vanka Magic. How is your life, briefly?
Life is good, I think, this week. We had rain today. Woohoo!
We had snow yesterday.
Woohoo! No.
For about 10 seconds. Imagine that.
We've had almost no precipitation since December. So
wow.
Precipitation was required. So that's good news.
It's been pissing it down here, Ivanka. It's been absolutely pissing it down here.
I know.
I did a half-hour bike ride in the pissing rain this week, so, it's not that great, rain. I'm going to stop interrupting you now and let you tell your quick story.
The big thing that has happened this week is that a judge has made a judgment to say that the expansion of Heathrow cannot proceed.
Yes.
And the legal basis is that it is not in keeping or in contravention of the Paris Climate Agreement, which in a world where law is based on precedent is a massive big deal, I think.
Yes, excellent.
So, I mean, there's lots of environmentalists on the internet talking about tipping points. And I'm not sure that we're home and dry yet. But the very fact that a judge said, hang on a minute, we've agreed to this climate thing and now we're expanding the Heathrow, that doesn't make any sense. No, that's good news.
That's excellent news.
And one of the reasons it's good news, as I was discussing with my mother as I dropped her off at the ferry when she left on a recent visit, I was like, we were talking about something environmentally again. And I'm just really tired. I want the system to be looking after this. I don't have, this sort of like the constant guilt and the constant thinking about and the, oh my God, is the planet going to survive? Is not a concern for individuals. It's a concern for the system.
What is the mass of the planet compared to the mass of a single human being? Because, relatively quite heavy.
It's relatively quite heavy. And all this, I absolutely think that there's much happiness to be found in living a less wasteful life and a life less dependent on, what everyone's telling us we need to buy and wear and eat and consume and buy and throw away. However, can somebody else please work out?
Can I have a think about it? Can we spread this load of this planet which weighs 5 with 24 zeros kilograms?
Wow, that is very heavy. Withing, that wouldn't work on my withing scales.
I'm over half a kilogram below my goal weight at the moment. Imagine that.
No wonder you had a millionaire shortbread with a disposable spoon.
How am I?
Fuck it. If you're half a kilo below your target weight, why not destroy the planet in celebration?
Why not? Exactly. Well, that's not the only thing I'm celebrating. I got to the end of my to-do list for my new app yesterday afternoon. So we are in release candidate. I've been saying the end of February. I've been banging away at it. I've been really working hard on it, and it's looking good. And I think it's ready for App Store submission. I've got to do screenshots. I've got to write some. I've got to probably sort of polish up some of the copy and stuff, which there's quite a lot of. But we are augmented reality data visualizations of what makes you happy.
My goodness.
It exists.
It exists.
By the time you hear this podcast, hopefully, it may even be in the App Store. Well, certainly if you don't listen to the podcast the second it comes out, it will be in the App Store. It's called Changes. It's by Good to Hear. And it lets you track your mood, write diaries, put little tags on everything, and then it gives you these wonderful 3D word clouds and a map of where makes you happiest. And I'd actually quite like to see your map because your places are further apart than mine. I want to see how that looks on a table. All I've got to do this weekend is I've got to go to Heels or a posh furniture shop and do the augmented reality on a nice sort of shop dressed table. Oh. So that the screenshots look nice. Oh, I see. So it's basically a camera.
Right.
So yeah, that's exciting.
That is exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah, so that's a big. I've been saying 9 months, but it's 7 months work. Altogether, accumulated time. I don't know, actual hours I have tracked, but I couldn't say offhand how many hours, but lots. I also this morning signed up for PRS, which was £100 payment I've been putting off for about 3 years. Just as I don't really have £100, but it's basically that means if my music gets played, I get paid some pathetic amount of money. So I've got that to look forward to. I probably will make less than the £100 for the entire rest of my life, but we'll see.
You never know.
You never know.
One day someone's gonna pick up on the Peanut song.
So one day
you're gonna be rich.
The YouTube views are still pathetic on that, by the way.
Really?
And it was a lot of work. Internationally filmed. And the final thing, I finally read my Amnesty newsletter. The first time they send this new Amnesty magazine,
right?
And this is more kind of on the general podcast stuff. But they had an interview with that Philip raconteur UN poverty report guy.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm glad I opened this because I've been wondering how the things have changed since. And he said, while there's sort of been vague kind of concessions around the waiting period, the fact that the government is talking about policing instead of poverty and privatisation of transport and all these things still means that it's basically, they're ignoring it.
Nothing's changing. They don't care.
and it's a disgrace. But it was great to see that, because I've been donating to Amnesty since 2011, 2012, and I get the magazine and I sort of ignore it. I'm like, you've got my money, you don't need my attention as well. But I was glad I opened it yesterday, and it's got lots of stuff. Especially now that we're talking about it, that sort of thing on the podcast, it's like, oh, I actually care about some of these things, and it's interesting. It's got these little 2-minute, what you can do in 2 minutes, like email this person in Bahrain and say you want this person released, or, it's like these a couple of things you can try. So, yeah, maybe I'll incorporate those in. Right, I've talked for long enough.
You have, really. Seriously.
Yes. Seriously.
Seriously, Michael.
After making me talk quick. It's hard to say things quickly, isn't it?
I'm a little peanut. 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 I want a peanut. Do you want a peanut? 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 Do you want a peanut?
Okay, this Overton Window.
Overton Window. I have to say that when I first heard it, which I can't remember when, I sort of imagined it as some sort of time, like the window of opportunity to do a thing. Or it was just the context in which it was being used. I was like, at some point the Overton window is going to expire and then we will no longer be able to shoot our rocket into space because the stars will be pointing in the wrong direction. But then I had to look it up because I was making up all sorts of definitions in my head.
I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page because this is a hack podcast. The policy scale, the policy spectrum from... I don't quite understand this axis of more free to less free, but it's like stuff that popular policy is sort of in the middle. Oh, in the middle is stuff that's actually policy, then there's popular stuff around it, and then there's sensible stuff around that, and then there's acceptable stuff beyond that, and then there's radical stuff beyond that, and then there's unthinkable stuff beyond that, such as electing a TV star to be president of the United States of America, or
worse, a reality TV star.
Not even
a talented TV star.
We watched a film yesterday called on Netflix. It's the one with Seth Rogen and the politician one. We were just like, let's just watch something easy, and in that, they've got Bob Odenkirk playing the president. So this is a recent film. They've got him playing the president, and he's a TV star, but like an actor, I think. But he plays the president on the telly, and now he's been elected as president. But he wants to not run for another term because he wants to try and move into film. He's like, yeah, it's really hard to move from TV to film. Like, and what was great about I think the best thing I got from that film was that, I mean, spoiler alert, if you're going to watch this film, which I have not actually identified what it's called, let me just give people a chance to put their fingers in their ears. Long Shot, the film was called, with Seth Rogen and that one off The Office. I thought the best thing that happened in it was that she kind of broke ranks and said, yeah, fuck this idiot of a president. I'm kind of doing something real. And it's like, yeah, can we please... what we've seen of the Republicans. I find it incredible that no Republicans in the impeachment thing remotely broke ranks. One person broke. And that moment I was like, is this the wall breaking? Are other people going to finally be human beings again? No, they just absolutely like doubled down on this partisan thing. And it's like, how is that normal? How is that within the Overton window on topic?
I don't know. I don't know how, but isn't that how you shift the Overton window, by getting people to pretend that what he's doing is normal? I mean, how do you go home and like, I don't know.
How? I mean, yeah, he's powerful, but like, you've got to sleep at night. Like, you've got to.
Yeah. You've got to explain yourself to your kids. You've got to go.
No rational human being can possibly think that Donald Trump is a good person to have in power. Surely, no rational human being. Like, the only way you can accept that, surely, is by either turning off parts of your brain, or just you're getting something out of it that we're not seeing.
Yeah,
he's just literally so powerful. He's forced his way. He's got dirt on every single Republican. I don't know. Like, what can he possibly be doing? Or is it like the party? And he doesn't represent the party. He represents himself.
Yeah. He's not.
And
he's
it's not. They're not even protecting their party, are they? They're just turning their party into a stain on history.
But I don't understand this part. But equally, though, I have to say, when we were talking about, what went wrong in the elections, with the Labour Party, the actual party never got properly behind Corbyn, who was the elected leader. But then but it doesn't work the same in America, does it? They didn't elect. Oh no, they do. They elect their candidates for presidency, don't they? And then the public, like, that's what we're going through with the Democrats at the moment. They're working out who's going to be their candidate.
Yeah, although technically that's they get delegates, but technically they don't have to choose the one with the most delegates. Like, it's kind of like advisory, but there was like some civil riots in the 60s that they were like, no, we have to do the one with the most delegates. Because like they were just going, we're going to ignore those non-white communities delegates, obviously. Right. And that was what a lot of the kind of Martin Luther King stuff, those, all that kind of business was all around. And then, so the Democrats. But technically, if Bernie gets the most... delegates, they still don't technically have to choose him, but hopefully there'll be bloody rioting in the street if they don't.
I don't know. Anyway, I think that's
US politics.
That's US politics. But so the idea of being behind the leader in public. I mean, it is difficult, because I can't in the same breath criticise the Labour Party for not getting behind the leader, and then criticise the Republican Party for getting behind the leader. But
surely it depends on the leader, Ivanka.
Well,
this is not a symmetrical situation. Again, I'm going to say, getting behind Jeremy Corbyn is a very different thing to staying behind Donald Trump. I think what's interesting is, because the right have been pushing the Overton window to the right, then you do get Andrew Yang pushing, running for the president on universal basic income campaign, which, by the way, people were behind that idea in the 60s, presidents. I can't remember which one, but
behind universal basic income.
But this idea has been around for a while, and it was actually something that the president, they thought was a good idea.
This is the thing we have. It is my understanding that we have been shifting more and more to the right over time. We have had things that were normal, like working weeks, the idea of publicly funded projects to help employability. There's all these through reading, doing stuff for the podcast. We've cited examples. I mean, the existence of the NHS breaking in the UK will be an interesting one, because I'm waiting to see where they sort of go, it costs £80 to visit your GP, and everyone goes, and then they go, okay, a £5, and everyone goes, oh, okay then. And then suddenly we're paying to go to visit our GPs because they have shifted something, gone unthinkable. We've all gone, and they've brought it back, but not all the way back to free healthcare at the point of care for everyone, no matter. Do you know what I mean? So I think
the slow erosion of the values behind these systems, and like everyone used to be a socialist, and now it's really interesting to watch how Trump makes like stuff that a politician would never say, that would never be acceptable for a politician to say.
Oh, but he's just saying it how it is, man.
He's just got this way, hasn't he, of just like saying whatever the hell he wants. And then it's weird how and it's just like the way news cycles work is, oh, that was said. And then if he keeps saying a new thing, there are never any consequences for any of the things he's saying. Is it just like because it's this fire hose of absolute nonsense that means that nothing ever gets dealt with, that he's now up to, what's the lie counter up at now? Like 13, 15,000 probably? I don't know. Like, how does this stuff become acceptable? How does it have no consequences when the frustrating thing about politicians has always been that they won't say anything? And yeah, like you hope that I guess like the Overton window doesn't have to be just shifting left and right. It could just be honest or like transparent or not transparent in politics. I suppose that's an interesting way that you'd hope that other people could benefit from what Trump has shown us.
Or simple rudeness, acceptable levels of rudeness, acceptable levels. You know, the way he speaks is a way we all tell. You know, we wouldn't accept from children. Our own, other people's, in a playground. If we listen to a child speaking like he does on a bus, we'd be like, that child is very ill-bred.
Well, that's the thing is, like, he speaks from, you know what I'm saying. This, that, you know what I'm... Like, there's innuendo, there's always, like... But it's from this sort of dominating perspective. It's from like it's always from above. Hey, you, these, like, and it is like people do find him charming. People do, and also whenever you hear about someone meeting him in person, he's the most like flattering, kind of like complimentary person that you could ever meet by the sound of it. Like, but he, like a child could not do that because the child does not have the swagger, does not have the like. You have to have a sort of slightly perverse sense of your own self-importance to be able to behave like Donald Trump as well. Just the content of what he says we would not accept, certainly.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he was recorded, the fact that the President of the United States of America is recorded, that we have all heard with our ears of him talking about grabbing women by the pussy. Who the fuck ever says that? You know, I mean, my husband is the kind of guy that, you know, if you meet him, you'd probably think he was quite laddie. Mm. And he's been on holiday before now with, like, you know, been on a trip with some guys, and one of the people was speaking about his wife, and my husband came back. He was like, it took him, he still mentions it maybe every 6 months because he's so incredulous that somebody would speak. He was like, it's not even, you know, this kind of locker room talk. It's like, there is no locker room talk where people talk like that.
Sexual assault admission.
Yeah. And it's like...
A boast. There's a boast about sexual assault.
Which is... Also interesting this week in the news is Harvey Weinstein being convicted.
Good,
that was good. Harvey
like we've had a couple of good ones this week. I did see that Poland has done some. They've declared loads of areas LGBT free zones.
I mean, they shouldn't be allowed in the EU.
Well,
do you know what I mean? Like that is like, if the EU's going to serve any purpose, it's got to be for going, no, I understand that you've got this weird fucked up history with the Catholic Church, but you need to sort your shit out.
Well, let's not forget that we did this in the 80s. Like Article 22, is it called Section 22? Thatcher brought in that prevented schools from talking about homosexuality and like branded that all as. So yeah, we did it, and when did that get revoked?
Very recently, I think.
Yeah, I think
really recently.
What was it? Section 28. Sorry, Section 28. Sorry, everyone. I should know this. It was in 1988, and it was repealed in June 2000. So we're 20 years. We've got 20 years on Poland at this point.
All right.
Like,
I'm still not letting them off.
yeah, no, we certainly shouldn't let them off.
I saw that this week. I was like, fuck. Because, this is still a country that debates quite openly, but a lot of it's to do with the fact that Catholic Church has had such a strong hold. They talk about this week on Shrove Tuesday in this country. It's not Pancake Day. It is. It's basically Mardi Gras Day. Everyone dresses up in costumes, and then they burn an effigy of something. And so my daughter's nursery did one, and you're supposed to blame the effigy for all the things that you've done. The things that you've done badly in the year, and then it gets burnt and. If I've understood the explanation correctly. So she blamed it on her getting cross at bedtime, apparently. And then the teacher read out what all the different kids had said that were the fault of the effigy thing. Anyway, in a Croatian town, they burnt an effigy of, I think, an LGBT family. Nice. Or something. Like it doesn't come in regular news, that. So I follow a few Facebook groups that... But, it's just like... Yeah,
there's a reaction of people that are uncomfortable with LGBT rights to the Overton Window moving over and making that unacceptable.
Okay, yeah.
Making people acceptable. And, you only have to... the Pride March last year in London, just that moment where, I saw the police coming and I was like, oh, God, the police. And it was it was the LGBT police part of the parade followed by the NHS part. I was like, how can anybody have any doubt that this is a normal thing in humanity? This is a thing. So, get used to it. And it is not a threat to you, not...
No, that's
they're not rapists.
Yeah.
They're just like someone the same gender. Yeah. They're not rapists and they're not paedophiles, for fuck's sake.
No. I think a major thing here is the fact that, a man talking about grabbing people is somehow allowed to be the president, where two people loving each other is somehow sort of I don't like it, creeps me out. I don't even know what people use as their argument. People don't. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, well, we know it can. It makes you uncomfortable if you're scared of it. Probably because you don't know anything about it and you are confusing it. You're conflating it with,
something else.
Paedophiles. It seems you look at the headlines on. The first gay character on EastEnders, and the headlines were "Get this filth off our TVs." The British press. Can you believe?
Yeah.
So that's the mindset. When there's ignorance, and I'm not. I think. I don't claim to have not been ignorant for most of my life, but that's. But I think what I'd say is, how does all this stuff get normalised? I would say this sort of this information apocalypse that we're in is a part of this. But I think there's two things here.
Information apocalypse?
Well, I just mean there's too much stuff. There's too much news. There's too much media. There's too many websites. There's too many ads on Facebook. There's just too much of everything to this fire. Where it used to be quite boring and there'd be some news every so often. Now it's you just pick up your phone and you can find 20 things to get angry about. Yeah. Or even if just the telly is 24-hour news, even that is sort of part of it. But so there's this when you don't get a chance to even form an opinion about each thing except your initial reaction, certainly not to do anything about it or to actually make sure it stops happening. I don't think we get that opportunity anymore.
There's no time to reflect.
So you have to force yourself to make time to reflect in this day and age.
Also, what we were talking about with cancel. But that's that same. It's if the cancel culture. That was it. If you're not really allowed to reflect. You're not really allowed to go. And I don't know how this works positively and negatively, but it's oh, that made me feel uncomfortable. You can't say that it made you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, but it did make me feel, it's you are evil, you're bad, pile on. Where actually, to be able to go, ugh, and then someone go, it's like my daughter giving you food. I'm not trying that. You can do whatever you like, but you cannot say, ugh, to food. You don't have to like it. but you cannot say. So then you can talk about what means. But if you're not allowed to go or or whatever your weird human initial reaction is, then
your initial what's the bit at the bottom of your brain? Cerebellum. Your animal brain, your reptile brain that is super racist.
I've not seen this before.
Super racist animal brain. Like,
run away!
Get away. Oh, that's slightly different. Run away from it. Yeah, like, so what we've got, let's forget about our higher brain functions and imagine that we're all just our animal brain. What we've got is the majority of people walking around with their animal brains that don't want to deal with anything that's too different because that makes them scared. It puts them into a fight or flight mode. But unfortunately, you've also got people that are different, that are part of the same society, that also have an animal brain, that they're scared of things that... But, like, I guess it's probably more likely that you're scared of yourself for being different than that you're scared of other people that will see you as different. So you've got scared people that are a minority and then scared people that are the majority. As society has developed, more and more of the scared people in the majority have learnt how to use some of their higher brain functions, some of the more sophisticated human faculties, to start to look at those people that formerly we were scared of and realise that they're actually not scary. They are actually the same as us if we look past the superficial differences. But that takes conscious, rational brain, and it doesn't work if you just use your lizard brain, because your lizard brain just sees colours and shapes and behaviours that are different. So as more and more people are using their higher brain functions to actually be a bit more rational about how they interact with other people, and realising that there are benefits as well to including more people in society, and having a more diverse culture has all sorts of benefits. There are still people who, I guess, aren't as ingrained in a multicultural or different types of people area, that aren't forced to use their higher brain functions to kind of overcome their animal-based brains. And I think this I think a lot of what's happening is a reaction of those people to being told that they're supposed to use they're supposed to think harder, make America think harder before judging things. But that takes effort and it takes time, and they don't see the benefit, and they find it tiring, and they feel like they're always going to get it wrong, and it's just like they feel like they can't win. And suddenly someone's come to them and said, well, maybe you don't have to do that. Yeah. Like, maybe you don't have to be inclusive. Maybe you don't have to after all. And then suddenly all of that, everyone just gets to go, I don't have to think about this anymore. I can just go with what my gut says, go with what my base brain says.
I think there's a couple of things, or to add to that, perhaps, because of the way that the world is becoming more connected, more of us can travel, we get more information, we get more pictures, we see more. There are more things to freak out your lizard brain.
Certainly. There's more opportunities.
You're not seeking them. So instead of encountering a person who's different to you, walking down the street in your village, you are walking down the street in your village and everybody looks pretty much the same. But then you pick up your phone and it's like, whoa, what's all this about men marrying men? Because they're not it's not being it's kind of coming at them uninvited as well, because to be learning, because things are come at us uninvited through our phones. We're not even setting ourselves up into I'm going to learn something new today. Let me see about indigenous cultures in somewhere else. It's just look at these freaks. And so we respond like we are being invited to respond.
We're at the circus.
Yeah.
Like they're not included within our circle of empathy is ultimately the problem here. What I wanted to just try and figure out is, I feel like it's effort to be inclusive, and it's easy to not be inclusive, right? Tribalism is sort of this instinctual thing, and I think it's easier not to be inclusive and not to take the time to go, this person's a bit hard to understand, and it's making it a bit hard work to talk to them, to sort of get over that hump and actually realise, make a connection with someone. So I feel like left is more work than right. But I don't think like the right are clearly putting work into something like this. All this brain capacity that's not being used to sort of figure out how to include people doesn't just disappear. Like, it's being used for something else instead. Like, what is that?
The words that come to my brain, and I don't want to be like disrespectful, or that's my problem with these kind of things. But actually, the words that come into my head are working out how to benefit more from other people in a negative, take advantage of, to manipulate, to exert power. That's what I think the rest of your brain's doing if it's not working out how to if it's not putting effort into going, you're not the same as me, but there's nothing wrong with you, and we can still be friends.
I will trust you, and we will use the power of trust to both benefit. It's a zero-sum game, and I've got to do everything I can to figure out how to beat you.
Yeah, and I think that's it.
I think that's true, Ivanka.
And it's very unfortunate, but I think that's.
There's a lot of brain power goes into that, and you do see it. Like, it's like, I'm going to figure out how to get around this system, get around this person, get around that, what I can lie about, what I can't lie about. Yeah. I think there's a lot of that happening, isn't there?
Yeah. And for me, like, we've made friends with some new people this week. These people, I think I mentioned them off podcast, people that have moved back to the island from Hong Kong, and they're just really happy, and it's really nice to hang out with them because they're like, yeah, we could do that and you could do that and we'll do that. Like, there's this kind of like, right, we've all both turned up into a small environment and we need friends. And so let's talk about positive things and how we can be friends. And it's very nice to meet people like that who have a positive outlook. But yeah, I think that's the sad truth.
We find ourselves ever alone. Trust between two people must be grown. With all the worries of the world in our hands, maybe we don't need to understand. We only need to go play on. Here we are now, all together. Try and find out to get connected. Here we are now, all together. Try and find out to get connected. Here we are now, all together. Don't be shy now to get connected. Here we are now, all together. Try to find out to get connected.
If it's everyone out for themselves, then you don't have to feel bad about screwing other people over. But that's not sustainable.
That's the thing, that if your brain is thinking, if you're a person with a brain that's thinking about cooperation and you're trying to deal with somebody who's thinking the exact opposite, from a sort of, it's very hard to anticipate their moves. So I never in 1,000 years think of doing that. So therefore, I wasn't ready for that attack, and that's a weird thing.
And here's something optimistic, is just to say that look, the sort of rise of socialism came out at times of chronic inequality, like the sort of welfare state and all that. But even like before that, Victorian times, there was this massive inequality, and suddenly people were going like, this just doesn't work. And then sort of socialism and like cooperation began to thrive. Helping other people was in an environment where it could thrive. We've been experiencing an environment that's been relatively dominated by socialist behaviours, by sort of like inclusive ideas. Certainly the culture and TV and films are all kind of around that. And just game theory says that as soon as one strategy dominates, then it's sort of easier to undermine using another strategy. So you sort of get the opposite strategy coming in. And the thing is, like, if then that starts to take over, then that could happen. But then if it reaches a certain point, then it will be overtaken again by the cooperative strategy. And it's just like there is an ebb and flow. And even though we know that overall cooperation works better, and that's why we have all these cooperative instincts baked into our behaviours, programmed deep into our hearts, it's not 100%. And the fact that someone can get ahead by just lying to people that are inherently trusting, if it's not perfect, then it's always going to have these ebbs and flows and things coming in. And it's disappointing that it's got to the state of... It's got relatively extreme, but still probably like in long term, on a longer time scale, isn't as extreme as it has been in many ways. It's just more transparent, isn't it?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I think remains a problem, and it's to do with branding and PR for different ways of thinking. If you take advantage of somebody in the style of Donald Trump, somehow you get exalted. You look how clever he is taking advantage of all those people. And if you are trusting and you were, look, naive, silly, there's some sort of cleverness has been branded on being smart enough to rise to the top regardless of method, where actually we need to, in the same way that we need to stop rewarding people who steal, what did you say, take huge amounts of wealth. In the same way we need to stop holding them into some higher vision. We also need to look at it's not about what you achieve, it is absolutely how you achieve it. And if you look at interviews with people like the guy, the CEO, owner, whatever he is, of SAP, whatever that thing is, he's a billionaire. And he's like amazingly open about the sort of equality in the world, and has a complete sort of steward ownership approach, all those kind of things. It's like, it's not just about what you achieve. It's got to be about how you do it these days.
All right.
I think.
I can go for that. This podcast is ending now, listener. What's happening? Are these on autoplay? Is it going to play the next one of this podcast? Is it going to play another podcast? What's going to happen now? Are you at your phone? Are you doing something else? Are you on your bike? Probably shouldn't be. I do it in one ear on my bike, but so I can't get to my phone afterwards. So, like, what are we supposed to... And, I skip... What do you do? Like, I skip over the please subscribe, please pay us money, please... if you do this when I listen to a podcast. So, like, what are we after? You don't have to do, if you're a subscriber to podcasts, you know about subscribing. You'll figure it out. If you're not, then, you probably won't. So, what is the point of this outro? It's to remind you of the possibilities, which apparently helps. What are they? Sorry.
I think you're right. No, I think that's good. I think, the possibilities are... Shall I reel off some
if
possibilities
your phone's
today?
in your hand, what can you do? You could follow Ivanka.
You could.
How?
You follow me at Ivanka on Twitter.
How?
What do you mean? By going to your Twitter app.
So you go, if you've got the Twitter app, you go into that, you search, you have to be careful not to accidentally tweet Ivanka.
Just whatever you do. Oh, all right, go to grandpodcast.com. That's the best place to go.
And then click on the links on there.
You've got a subscribe button, and you've got links on there to all of our profile stuff, all the stuff we do.
Yes.
You've got links to all the things we mention in podcast, references, links to Wikipedia. We've Googled stuff for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how kind are we?
Yeah.
We've got a whole library section.
We've got a library section, and if you did like the podcast and you wanted to help us, you just have to click on one of those Amazon links. Amazon. When I say Amazon links, you go, But there's Amazon links, which you can... that didn't work. And we get paid for whatever you then subsequently buy on Amazon. So, you know, when you buy your thing that costs 50p and gets delivered within an hour, we get 1p? Half a p?
I don't know.
Fraction, some tiny fraction of a penny that we don't get until we've got £100 anyway. So, you know, but it's possible you could help. We've got Patreon if you've got money as well. Just go on the website.
Yeah, go to grandpodcast.com and then do stuff. That's the easiest. Also, tell your mates.
Yeah, tell your mates.
If you've stopped at traffic lights, you're on your bike, turn to the person next to you and go, do you know what?
This podcast.
Have you heard this podcast? They're really annoying.
Yeah. And if you're not bothered about Ivanka and just want to hang out with me, you can come on my Twitch
which
stream.
almost never happens.
No, basically. I don't know why anyone would just like a little handful of nerds that want to watch me do some programming. You can come find me on twitch.tv/Michael Forrest. And on that chaotic outro,
It's beautiful. I love it.
Shall we say goodbye?
Yes.
Okay then. Goodbye, listener.
Bye,
We
bye,
love
bye.
you.
Bye, we do.
Bye.